Hello, everyone. Welcome back to St. Louis Teens, and welcome back to our series on COVID-19 Innovators. Today we have Andrew Glantz, who is the founder and CEO of GiftAMeal, a socially conscious dining app. Users simply take a photo of their meal at a partner restaurant, and GiftAMeal will provide a meal to a neighbor in need through a local food pantry. It's an amazing way to enjoy a meal at a restaurant. So, Andrew, we want to thank you firstly, not only for providing meals to those in our community, but also giving all of us that valuable opportunity to help as well. So, thank you so much for your phenomenal innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, thanks really goes out to all the people that are taking the photos and the restaurants that are a part of it.
And, Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to start GiftAMeal?
Sure. So I'm from Los Angeles originally and came out to St. Louis to go to Wash U for undergrad. And then one summer at Wash U, I had an internship at a venture capital firm. And when I was at that firm, there were startups coming in to pitch every day to try to get funding. And on a lunch break, I was kind of in that startup mentality. I was talking with the other intern about how people discover restaurants and how people give back and want to support businesses that are doing positive things for the community, and how people also want to be sharing it out on social media as well. And so we looked at combining together these ideas with kind of the one-for-one business model of a Tom Shoes or Warby Parker, with the food photo trend, with trying to drive traffic to restaurants, into what we have today with GiftAMeal, to take a photo to give a meal. So decided to go forward with it, put my savings in to start the company, hire an app developer, and went from there.
And, I'm part of this entrepreneurship program in my school district known as Spark, and I know that it is a dream of almost every entrepreneur to serve several different groups of customers at the same time. And the one thing I really noticed about your app is that it's able to benefit, several parties. Not only those in need of the meal, but also the restaurants needing marketing, and finally, people looking for good restaurants and genuine personal reviews. So I'm curious as to how you sort of were able to come to GiftAMeal in terms of an idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when there's multiple stakeholders, or you're looking at a multi-market company or two-sided marketplace where you need to have the users in order to get the restaurants and the restaurants in order to get the users, if you can have these win-win situations where you could create a model that works for everybody, that's awesome. But it's also really difficult because there's a chicken or the egg problem where you need to have the restaurants in order to get users and you have users in order to get restaurants. So early going was something very difficult to try to get restaurants to participate even for free. Initially, it was just my friends and family that were on the app, and it took a lot of iteration and getting out there and hitting the pavement and going door to door in order to get that initial traction and show that proof of concept in order to kind of reach everybody and show that, hey, this is something real that you can join and be able to make a big impact and have a good experience. And so now that we're a little bit more established, we're still a startup, but now that we have something going and we kind of know what we're doing, that's something that's really cool, like you said, to sit back and think, wow, like we're able to help the community, help the restaurants, and help individuals that are dining out or ordering takeout. So definitely something really cool to think about all the different lives that we're touching.
And after you were able to sort of go through that initial stage and where you are today, can you give us a glimpse into the success of the apps in terms of the number of restaurants that have registered so far, the cities you're in, the number of pictures posted, or the number of meals donated?
Yeah. So we have over 200 partner restaurants,
Wow.
mainly in St. Louis, but also some Chicago and Detroit. We have over 35,000 app users, and we've given over 442,000 meals to those in need. And each meal equates to 1.2 pounds of food that's distributed from a big food bank to a neighborhood pantry where those in need could access it. So if you multiply that 442,000 times 1.2 pounds, that's over 500,000 pounds of meat, produce, and canned goods and dairy products that have been distributed to all these different neighborhood pantries, which is something that's pretty cool.
That's incredible. And in terms of the value of gifting someone a meal who's in need, I think it's priceless. But sort of looking at the budgeting aspects of such a venture, I know that there are a lot of situations where people want to help others, but you have to be able to generate a revenue in order to be able to do that on a consistent basis. So, what is your specific advice for social entrepreneurs who are trying to do the same thing you're doing or in a different manner and trying to help those in need, but also be able to do that in a consistent manner.
Yeah, so to clarify our model, the restaurants are paying a monthly subscription to be on our mobile app as a mix of marketing and giving back. And so that's where the money comes from in order to make this all possible. So at the end of the day, the restaurants are our customers, and we need to be delivering value to them in terms of branding and making them look good and driving new customers in the door. And so in terms of other entrepreneurs looking to do a model, the giving back is something that's at the core of the company. But at the end of the day, you're a business and you need to be generating revenue in order to make an impact. So thinking about how you're going to be best serving your customer who's actually paying you money is something that requires a lot of effort. And you need to make sure that the way that you're doing that is parallel to the way that you're making a difference. So you want to make sure that the profit motive and the purpose motive are consistent goals for your social enterprise, and that they're not conflicting goals, and that one lifts up the other. So as we're able to make a bigger difference in our community, that means more people are going to be dining out at our partner restaurants and supporting them, meaning we're going to give more value to the restaurants, and the restaurants will be willing to pay to be on GiftAMeal. And so as we're able to grow our profit, we'll also be able to grow the impact and the purpose of the venture. So I think that's something really important, is making sure that you're building a sustainable model.
And, even though this is sort of your personal passion, I assume that, maintaining an app entails work and responsibility. So I did want to ask, what do you have to do on a daily basis, and what kind of time commitment is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big time commitment. I think that you can have balance in your life as an entrepreneur. It doesn't have to be doing the startup 24/7, no sleep, no time for socialize. It takes extreme organization. So like I have a calendar, I have a master calendar that has a number of sub calendars for GiftAMeal set meetings, for projects I'm working on, for the next steps for them, that I can move around throughout the course of the day. My social calendar, like setting up times to see my girlfriends, it's basically, or setting up times to have like alone time. I calendar everything so I can make sure that I have enough time to have a well-rounded lifestyle. On the day-to-day for GiftAMeal, there is a lot of work that goes into it. And especially as a young company, you have to wear multiple hats as the CEO. And, not all those hats are the most exciting thing in the world. Not everything is big picture strategy and implementation. Some things are dealing with like accounting and legal things, or, it's going through and, social media management is enjoyable to some extent, but sometimes I need to be sitting back and going through to keep our social media up to date. And, that's something that can get a little bit tedious at times. And so not everything you're going to enjoy doing the most, but they're all necessary steps in order to move the business forward. So everything from cold calling to putting together pitch decks to doing the accounting and legal side, to revamping our messaging, to training our team, through managing our team members and hiring and applying for grants and pitching to investors. There's always something new that's going on. It's not always like the flashy marketing and everything, but it is something that I very much enjoy doing. And when I look at some of the more tedious work that you do as an entrepreneur, the way I think of those is that I know how they fit into the bigger picture. And so then that gives me pleasure to be able to know, okay, I'm building up the foundation and building the tools in my toolbox. So that way, when it comes around for those big, creative, autonomous decisions, I'm going to be able to maximize my potential with those and really have everything that I need at my disposal.
And I think the big thing right now that's on everyone's mind is sort of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I did want to ask, how are things different for you in GiftAMeal because of this pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic has definitely hit the restaurant industry super hard and hit communities super hard everywhere. And GiftAMeal is not exempt from that. When this was all starting to ramp up in early to mid-March, we kind of saw the writing on the wall that this was coming for the restaurant industry and there were going to be big changes happening. So we got a little bit ahead of it about a week or two before the restaurants were going to all be shut down for dine-in. And we started development on our app for a pivot. So it used to be you had to be at one of our partner restaurants to take a photo while you're there to give a meal, and we'd use your phone's location to verify you were at the restaurant. We then pivoted the app to be able to be used from home to take a photo of your takeout, delivery, or gift card purchase, so that way we could still be supporting the local restaurants that are partnered with GiftAMeal. We also realized the restaurants were going to struggle a lot through this, and so we offered the restaurants that if they were struggling during this crisis, they could just reach out and let us know, no questions asked. We wouldn't charge them their normal monthly subscription, and we would cover the cost of the meal donations ourselves without having the revenue stream from them. We also looked at different partnerships with those in the food tech industry to give value to restaurants. So we did a partnership with Uber Eats to get a discounted rate for our partner restaurants, and with a partnership with this company Pay for contactless payment options for restaurants to try to give more value. And then even as a small startup with limited funds in the bank, we realized there was going to be a really big need for children and the elderly during this crisis. And those are the majority of the people served by some of our local food banks. Children, because they wouldn't have access to school lunches anymore, and the elderly, since they were most at risk for COVID-19. And so we pledged to match up to $5,000 in donations to the St. Louis local food bank, Operation Food Search, in order to provide immediate hunger relief during this crisis. And so we sent this challenge out to our users, and we were able to raise over $22,000 to provide over 8,000 family meal kits to those in need during the crisis. So, that was all great stuff that we could do then. And I mean, every day we're doing more and more. We added a filter on the app, so you can filter by restaurants that have curbside pickup, takeout, delivery, gift cards available, alcohol to go, etc. We also partnered with the website curbsidestl.com, where they had a listing of the restaurants, and you could filter by the restaurants that were on GiftAMeal. And most recently, just like you're doing this podcast, we launched our own podcast. So it's called Food on the Table, and we're going behind the scenes interviewing the people that are putting food on the table for our communities, whether it's restaurant owners or whether it's the executive director of Operation Food Search was on a recent one with us. And so that's something that's been another way we could look to help spread the word about what our partners are doing during this crisis. So apologies for my rambles, but it's every day we're just trying to figure out, okay, what can we do in order to get through this? And we were very fortunate to win a few weeks ago the first place and a $20,000 prize at the Global Impact Awards. And so, that gave us some of the funding to get through this, as well as getting one of the PPP governmental loans to help cover the cost of payroll, because we have 3 of us full-time on the team, and 3 part-time. And so that was something that was really helpful. And we also received an Arch Grants Relief grant. So that helped us have the money to have the runway to get through the crisis. And throughout everything, even when we didn't know we would have that money, we were just thinking, how are we going to be able to help? Because we were in a very unique position, we felt, to be able to make a really big impact on our communities and for our partner restaurants, and we had to do what was right.
It's amazing that, even during this COVID-19 lockdown, when restaurants have sort of been the businesses who have had to shift the most, that you were able to pivot your app to sort of support the new needs of society and the new needs that have arisen because of this pandemic. Recently, there have been some reports in the media about the disruption to the food supply chain caused by the pandemic, and a lot of produce and food is still being wasted. So while on the other hand, there are people who are still in need of food, in your opinion, is there a way to sort of help this situation quickly?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think when I've spoken with the food bank about kind of how they're still getting access to food, one of the big ways that they're getting access to food is through food distributors like Cisco and US Foods that were normally selling the food to the restaurants. And so instead of, now that the restaurants were getting less food, especially during the beginning of this crisis when dining was closed, they started to be donating food to the local food banks in order to get to those in need. But as the food supply chain is disrupted, I think that is going to be something problematic going forward. There are some restaurants that have had to raise prices just because, the cost of hamburger meat went up 25%. And so in order for them to have any type of profit margin, in order to stay open, they had to raise their prices as well. So I think that's something to definitely keep our eye on going forward. But, I think that the food distributors are doing everything they can, and the food supply chain is kind of in it with the restaurant industry to make it through. And we've also seen, in terms of food waste, some of the restaurants that are figuring out exactly how much food to order and everything. We've been working with them that if they have leftover food that they ended up not using for that day, but they won't be able to use that food the next day if it goes bad. We've helped coordinate food pickups between the restaurants and our local food bank partner in St. Louis, Operation Food Search, so the restaurants would be able to donate that food so it wouldn't go to waste. So just kind of another thing we're trying to do to make sure that we can be helping the community during this time and utilize our unique relationships with the restaurants and the food banks in order to be that connector.
And finally, what is your advice for other teens and other innovators during this time?
Yeah. Well, I'm not quite a teen myself anymore. I'm 25, so I know I look like I'm 18, but and I also know that Gen Z is very different than myself as a millennial as well. I don't have TikTok, but advice to teens during this time. I think that during times of crisis in a community, there is a lot of opportunity to do a lot of good, and there's the opportunity for a ton of innovation to happen. If you look back in 2008, 2009, during the financial crisis, there were a lot of really big companies that came into existence during that time as startups. And so I think that kind of keeping your eye out for what are the problems that are out there in the community, what are the trends pointing at, what industries did this disrupt, and what needs to be helped? Are there ideas we can pull from other industries to apply to these ones? Are there easy connections that can be made? Thinking through it like that and trying to find new ways of delivering value, I think is something that can really make for a lot of successful startups getting started now. So during times of crisis, I don't think it's time to stop innovating. It's the time to start.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your phenomenal work in fighting hunger in our communities and for sharing your work with us. So a link to GiftAMeal, it will be provided in the description below. And finally, thank you, Andrew, for answering all of our questions and sharing with us your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.